Okay. Well, thanks very much then to the two fathers of the Baltic Sea strategy. We're now switching over to our first of three planned plenary sessions during this conference. And I would like to, first of all, invite onto stage our four panelists. First of all, arrived just in the nick of time. I know he's been very busy because this morning when I was wearing my pajamas and eating my cornflakes, he was already speaking on Latvian television before 8 o'clock. So first of all, Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis, Vice President of the European Commission. Secondly, Dr. Marku Markula, the President of the European Committee of the Regions. Next, Dr. Henryka Mościcka-Dendys, the Undersecretary of State for Parliamentary Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland. And last, but certainly not least, Dr. Artis Pabriks, a member of the European Parliament. So thank you. Please take your seats. So the aim of this panel, very briefly, is to be forward-looking. We want to focus on the opportunities that a more connected Baltic Sea region offers its citizens, its enterprises, and also, of course, its states and state institutions. We want to think about the next steps in achieving the objectives of a strategy. And this is probably an opportune moment just to again repeat the three major objectives of a strategy. To save the Baltic Sea, something which was so elegantly presented by the Princess in the first session. To connect the region, which Prime Minister Butkiewicz of Lithuania talked about, transport and energy connections, research, business contacts, tourism, and so on. And thirdly, to contribute to increasing the general prosperity of the region. So with these issues in mind, I'd like to invite the first of our four panelists onto stage, one of the modern giants of Latvian politics, shall we say, Latvia's longest-serving Prime Minister, now Vice President of the European Commission, Valdis Dombrovskis.
Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to address you here at the 6th Annual Forum of the EU Strategy for the Baltic Sea Region here in Jūrmala. I would like to thank Latvia for hosting and co-organizing this event. Likewise, I would like to thank WASAB, Organization of Special Planners Around the Baltic Sea, as well as Interact program for their invaluable support for this event. Also, I'm sending you the best wishes from Commissioner Corina Cretu, who unfortunately was not able to join us today. Latvia has just completed the rotating chairmanship of National Coordinators of Baltic Sea Region Strategy. The experience proves that this has been a right decision to balance the Member States and Commission roles in coordinating the work within the strategy. 6 years have passed since the adoption of Baltic Sea Region Strategy in 2009, when it opened the way and served as a model for other strategies that have emerged since then in the Danube region, the Adriatic-Ionian region, and the Alpine region. After only 6 years, macro-regional strategies have become an important cooperation tool for achieving the objectives of Europe 2020 strategy for a smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. Now, building on this experience and together with Member States, we have launched a review and update of Action Plan for the Baltic Sea Strategy, of which this annual forum marks the completion. The aim of the review is twofold. We want to enhance the focus of the strategy and strengthen the links with regional organizations. The focus stems from the need to concentrate our efforts and limited resources on actions that are of macro-regional importance and contribute to achieving the three overall priorities of the strategy: save the sea, connect the region, and increase prosperity. The strengthened links with regional institutions will allow us to make sure that we all work in the same direction. I'll just give you one example. Cooperation on energy issues is a major challenge in the Baltic region. Hence, I'm glad to note that the policy area on energy of the Baltic Sea Strategy will be incorporated into the Baltic Energy Market Interconnection Plan or BEMIP initiative, which will facilitate this closer coordination we need, in particular in the context of future energy union. However, this review is not one-off exercise, which closes the file for another 6 years. The action plan of the strategy should remain a living document, able to adapt on evolving needs, opportunities, and priorities. Furthermore, the review process has also shown that 3 major challenges remain and should be overcome if actually we want to achieve a full potential of Baltic Sea region strategy. The first challenge is to make sure we mobilize all resources available. I'm thinking in particular of European structural and investment funds, whose programs for 2014-2020 are already on the table and are ready to support projects. In fact, for the very first time, these programs have been designed in a way to ensure that they take account of the macro-regional dimension and contribute to macro-regional strategies. Consequently, stakeholders, member states, regions have now an excellent opportunity to identify and implement projects with a macro-regional dimension, able to actually change the lives of people in their communities. But support to macro-regional strategies should not be limited to the European structural and investment funds. The approach should be an integral part of the all relevant EU, regional, national, and local policy frameworks. In mid and longer term, the substantial resources available in the region should allow for a more prosperous and connected region with an improved environmental status of the Baltic Sea. The second challenge is for the future consists on improving communication and visibility of the strategy. For example, by using concrete projects for storytelling and promotion of good practice. As underlined in the revised action plan of the strategy, even if we are able to implement brilliant and successful initiatives in the framework of the strategy, their full potential will not be used unless they are widely communicated. Communication should be strengthened at all levels: macro-regional, national, regional, and local. I encourage you all to explore the possibilities to bring this regional endeavor into minds of our citizens. The third, and for time being the last challenge for the strategy, we should ensure full involvement of all stakeholders at all levels. During the review process, we have listened carefully to member states, regions, and stakeholders in general. Now it's time to make the widest possible use of available tools and devote all your experience, expertise, and energy to engage and put projects on the table. I would like to call for a stronger commitment on national line ministries and for closer involvement of relevant Commission services in the implementation of the strategy. Each of us has to ask ourselves the following questions. What possibilities do I have to bring forward concrete actions in the context of Baltic Sea strategy? What opportunities do I have to cooperate in the region? What steps can I take in the upcoming years to implement the objectives of the strategy and to achieve a more prosperous, connected region with an improved environmental status of the Baltic Sea? Europe is watching the Baltic Sea region as an anchor of stability and prosperity. All the more reason to capitalize on what has been achieved so far and to give a good example for similar experiences. This annual forum is a wonderful opportunity to see what the region is able to do by just looking across borders, pooling efforts to tackle common challenges, and by exploring together the opportunities that lie ahead. I wish you a very good and fruitful discussions to the benefit of the Baltic Sea region and the European Union as a whole. Thank you for your attention. Valdis.
Thank you, Vice Commissioner Dombrovskis. And before we move on to the second speaker, in terms of the moderators, I see myself as the bad boy of the two moderators, and Anna-Maja pointed this out because I did forget to tell you about the order of this plenary session. So we will have our four speakers make their presentations, then we'll have follow-up questions to the panel, and then we'll open up the floor to questions from the audience to the panel. Anna-Maja will be focusing on the audience, so if you have questions that you wish to ask, please make yourself known to Anna-Maja, and then she will be able to allow you to give the question towards the end of this panel. So I do apologize for forgetting to point this out. So now we move on to our second presenter, Mr. Markku Markkula, who currently is serving as a president of the Committee of the Regions, but is a very experienced Finnish politician, having served for almost a decade in the Finnish Parliament. Mr. Markkula, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. It's really a pleasure to be here, and honor as well. And knowing that we have here a lot of experts in this Baltic Sea regional project operation. So I would like to emphasize a few kind of forward-looking, what you requested, forward-looking ideas, listening to the previous speakers. So I want to link some of your statements already with that, and challenge us then, all of us, to move on after the conference as well. But knowing that a lot of you will take part in the many parallel sessions going much deeper than here in the plenary we can do, much deeper on what can and should be done. So let me first start that by, from the Committee of the Regions perspective, the main challenges in the implementation of the Baltic Sea strategy can be subsumed under the three imperatives: apply innovative governance, simplify procedures, and seek full territorial integration. And on that, we have many funding instruments to be used. Sim Kallas, he pointed out that in the simplification, we could really have pioneering Baltic states, or maybe take that the Baltic Sea states or some regions in the Baltic state could really be a pioneering in implementing new kind of procedures in using the cohesion funding and integrating them more on the research and development funds, Horizon 2020, and many other local funding instruments. Maybe from that really fits here, since the Baltic Sea macro strategy has really been the forerunner on a European scale on all of this. And we have been the first macro region with the macro region strategy, and now we could really look for some of the next steps. So we need to be very open for some of the new developments. Macro regional strategies are demanded today, I would say, even by the people from the ground, because these strategies produce clear impact on the development of business, joint research and innovation, as well as dialogue between the citizens and the involved regions. If we look that in the past so far, project cooperation has been guided more by the rules for financial instruments, leaving very little room for innovation. In the future, we need more multi-financing. This means flexibility both within and between individual financial instruments, as well as improving the coordination of different financial instruments. And when we link this to what we have already heard, first Prime Minister Strajuma called for innovation hubs, and maybe again linked to Sim Kallas with his idea of the Baltic Opera Company. Why don't we take this opera more to the creativity and innovation, build the network of these innovation hubs, and not just in the three Baltic states, but all around the Baltic Sea, because I know so much what has happened, what has been already achieved in Sweden and Denmark, not to say anything about Finland, where we as well have a kind of booming at the moment among young generation for startups and entrepreneurship. So having this opera in, let's say, integrating creativity to engineering and science and to business and art and design. So that could be something. And taking that kind of elements in the forefront of the development of the whole Baltic Sea region. And that could be a strong new element using kind of orchestrated way different projects which have parallel activities, parallel interest, but creating more synergy between all of those. And I really do believe that this Baltic Sea macro-regional strategy is a powerful tool for European integration as well as for economic, social and territorial cohesion. And that's why we need to really look for what new forms we can create within that. It's what Sandra Kalnina stated, building new digital bridges. We can really here in the Baltic states really build these bridges by taking the modern digitalization in the active use, as we've already seen happening very much, especially in Estonia, nowadays very much in Latvia and some of the other states as well. So this really would be something turning the vision into a reality which was already requested. But this as well has a lot to do with the other very concrete project. The Lithuanian Prime Minister already announced that the Rail Baltica is not anymore a dream. It is a concrete activity with 120 kilometers, as he said already, on a construction from the Polish border to Kaunas. And we have many parallel activities along with that. Just to mention one where we, from the city of Helsinki and coordinated by the Aalto University, we have 21 partners from the 6 Baltic Sea region countries where we are improving the competitiveness and creating more collaboration linked to this Rail Baltica. So that shows on that it's not just a construction issue, it's not just a kind of traditional logistical improvement throughout the whole Baltic states all the way to Berlin and to the Central Europe. It's much more than that. We have stated from the COR, Committee of the Region as well, so it has today a strong message on a political development so that we are, and we here from the Baltic states, we need to be closer to the Central Europe, and the same applies to Finland as well. These kind of parallel activities, they create and they request as well as cooperation platform that brings benefit for many partners, but it means as well so that we are really eager to share and collaborate more, create what can be called the co-creation among all the actors. In the current context, the macro-regional strategy should improve. We want them to have an innovative governance and to simplify the procedures, and that applies to all the EU funding instruments. More, we are there looking through the Committee of the Regions as well, that we can mobilize forerunner regions to operate more really with the clearer, measurable, more impact-oriented targets, and emphasizing that building the reliable results and scaling them up throughout the Europe. Let me concretely kind of conclude that I want definitely to call all the Baltic states to, and the regional decision makers, not just the member state governments, but especially the regional decision makers, to take steps to be closer to all of those projects that many of you here are running regularly, and especially the innovative elements of those. The regional decision makers need to join their forces and build a strong Baltic network of innovation hubs to encourage open innovation experiments, concrete piloting, that people see that this kind of development is something that can be achieved. It's a strong move towards entrepreneurship. It's a strong move integrating small and medium-sized companies to collaboration with large companies, with large companies and different public sector bodies. But it as well has a strong fourth dimension, the quadruple helix dimension, the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Markkula. And now we move on to our third panelist, Henryka Mościcka-Dendys, who has a PhD in international law from the University of Warsaw and more than a decade's experience of working in the Foreign Ministry of Poland, in recent years in the European Department.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, Your Royal Highness, Princess Victoria, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here with you in Jurmala, in the beautiful city of Jurmala, I should say. It's already my fourth EU strategy or Baltic Sea strategy forum, and I'm pleased to see how year by year more and more flesh, if one can say so, is being put on the bones of the macro-regional approach and the macro-regional Baltic Sea strategy, and how the strategy, which started as a very theoretical concept of bringing the cooperation roots, the historical cooperation base in the Baltic Sea back to life, is becoming more and more a point of reference for those who cooperate in the region. And I'm pleased to see each year more and more participants taking part in the fora and discussing our joint challenges. I'm coming from Poland, a country which indeed, as someone said already, has a Central European leg, but we try to re-establish also our second leg, the Baltic leg. And I think this bringing back of historical traces, of historical traditions of cooperation in and around the Baltic Sea region is in particular of high importance for my own country. But let me start my short presentation with more general remarks on the very concept of European integration and the regional cooperation as such. Because I think that over the last period of time, mainly since the financial and economic crisis, which becomes more and more a political crisis, the European integration project has been put into the toughest test in its entire history. Its public legitimacy and the feeling of ownership by the European citizens were severely challenged, or even damaged, one could say. Therefore, what we see is an urgent need for regaining credibility and trust among the citizens for the EU, not only to survive, but to prosper and grow further. And the best way of achieving it is really to bring or give Europe back to its people. And I think we have to, first of all, to revitalize and strengthen the very idea of European integration, especially at the local and the regional levels, by giving Europeans a real chance to participate in this process and let them shape their own future. And here I think the macro-regional strategy or the macro-regional concept come with a helping hand. A traditional national perspective should be complemented by an innovative macro-regional one, because it opens new vistas, giving the hope for growth and progress by triggering public energy and potential. And it is unique in attracting various institutions, including regional authorities and other stakeholders, to implement European policies locally. However, we see that the macro-regional model is not the only one. It should be more and more complementary to the European level and the national level discussions. And we do not expect to see the macro-regional concept to replace the European cooperation. Quite on the contrary, it should supplement the European and the national perspective. And it is one of the dimensions of what I would call a new territorial approach. Since the end of the Cold War, ladies and gentlemen, the Baltic Sea region has been perceived as a role model of regional cooperation and integration, enjoying highly developed and comprehensive collaboration network. All existing regional organizations and formats are relevant and produce specific added value for the region. But what we need definitely more in the future is a better division of labor, more synergies, and more cohesion to our common goals, documents, and meetings. And the well-developed system of Baltic cooperation, comprising so many organizations, formats, and networks at international, national, and regional or local levels, offers, I think, unexhausted potential for further cooperation, and we should use it better. Given its strength and position, the EU should, first of all, fully recognize and also execute to a broader extent its role as a major driving force stimulating the Baltic Sea region's development. There is an urgent need for a clearly defined EU-Baltic policy. Such a policy should be developed and implemented in a coherent way, with all the relevant policies and instruments at hand. And the voice of the Baltic Sea region should be unison and better heard in Brussels. The challenges are clear, they're visible also in today's program. The EU-Baltic Sea strategy definitely is a forerunner of the EU macro-regional concept and plays an enormously important role in finding new ways of cooperation and for pushing the European project forward. It creates a framework that offers a unique opportunity for boosting regional cooperation through smart fusion of national, regional, and local interests. Its successful implementation largely depends on making the best use of close cooperation with other regional actors. For example, the Council of the Baltic Sea States, Northern Dimension, the Nordic Council of Ministers, HELCOM, and others. The potential of traditional cooperation in the Baltic Sea region is gradually being exhausted. That is why the EU's macro-regional and holistic approach to the Baltic Sea region through the Baltic Sea strategy should be strengthened and further developed. One should think of the region as a common Baltic space, devoid of all existing hindrances, barriers, or bottlenecks. Such a space should be built upon achievements of regional cooperation in the Baltic Sea region, the European integration, and last but not least, EU-Russia relations. The EU-Baltic Sea strategy should also remain open for cooperation with other external partners. Ladies and gentlemen, and my last point will be about communication, because when we talk about branding of the Baltic Sea strategy or making it more popular, more efficient, we should also think about communication. This is probably the last thing we have in mind when talking about the Baltic Sea region, but indeed bringing our region back to our citizens means also that we should be able to communicate it better. And I hope you will have plenty of time to discuss the modern means of communication about Baltic cooperation during this forum. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Well, our fourth panelist is Artis Pabriks. In the 1990s, Artis and I were both political scientists, recently qualified in the West, returning to Latvia. Artis from Denmark, myself from London. I chose the easy path of academia, ivory towers. Artis threw himself into politics, serving as an MP, serving as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Defense, and now in Brussels as a member of the European Parliament. So, Artis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daunis. I'm not sure about the easier path. You know, we politicians, we like to talk, you like to read, so it depends. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Your Highness Princess Victoria, Excellencies, I'm really pleased to be here in this forum in my native city, and especially in this historic place, because this is a place where many, very important events, cultural events and political events are taking place and have been taking place, starting already with 1986 with Conference of Chautauqua, which was here and which I think also took one brick out of that empire, which was some 25 years ago here. So I hope that at the end of this forum, maybe we would have also at least one brick additional to the Baltic Sea strategy on our activities. Now, if we are looking to the Baltic Sea from today's perspective, I still can't avoid remembering also my childhood at these sandy beaches. And I remember when I was standing there and I was also watching across the sea and trying to see where is that Sweden, where I am not allowed to go. And differently from Alex Stubb, I did not have a boat because we are not allowed to have boats and go and measure the depths and how clear is the water. But at this moment we can. And I remember from middle of 80s that it was more and more days also along our beaches where it was actually sometimes not encouraged to swim because water was dirty. And I must say that 20 years later, or 25 years later now, we don't have any more such problems here. It's still not the perfect cleanness, but the situation improved. So from that perspective, I really think that environment and the water and the Baltic Sea situation is one of the most crucial. Because all those millions of people which are living around the coastline, sandy coastline, or sometimes also stony coastline of the Baltics, they very much depend on how this environment is here. How clean is fish, how clean is water, and how our children can actually enjoy those beaches, what we have been enjoying. And here I think we have a lot of things to do, and I hope that the EU strategy can help. We have things we have to do at home within our EU countries, because also we are still sinning despite of a lot of progress which have been done. But of course, it's not only European Union. We also have countries like Russia nearby, and unfortunately also the former Königsberg region, Kaliningrad, is actually the biggest polluter at this moment per capita if we're measuring. It's more than 12%, I think, from all pollution is coming from just a little bit more than 1 million of inhabitants in the region. So I think that we have to look very much forward. How can we find a time that we can again find a partnership with our neighbors? Because it's not only in their interest, it's also in our interest that we can assist with cooperation as far as environment. So water, energy, and in many ways food, these are the biggest challenges globally, and these are also the challenges to which we can contribute in a positive way in a global perspective. Because looking to the Baltic Sea region here, we are probably among the most prosperous regions in European Union and probably among the most prosperous regions within the global network as well. So we can contribute if we are becoming stronger integrated. And this is what I told already some 10 years ago. I'm not satisfied with that level of cooperation what we do have among the Baltic states and the Nordic or Scandinavian countries, because we need much further integration. We need integration on all possible levels where we can find. And I think that here we can distinguish 3 levels. This is, of course, the institutional level. Either these are multinational institutional networks, or it is on the state governance level, or on the municipal level. As more contacts we would have, as better we will understand each other, and as better we will be able to solve those problems we are challenging. Second, it is a business network. If we would have a better business, we will probably be able to also have much more investments, much more cooperation, and also solutions for many economic problems that we have around. And here we have also problems where the dividing line is still existing invisibly between the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries. And this is still the question of certain discrepancy between our welfare, because we have been doing well on this side of the Baltic Sea. If we joined European Union and our average per capita compared to average in the EU was something a little bit under 50 or close to 50, then now we are very close to 70. And this is done within 20 years. So we are running faster. So what we can offer to Nordic countries, we can offer our vitality. So if we are looking to the Nordic countries, you probably can offer us also the better understanding of those things which you were able to experience while we were not able to experience. And this applies also to many issues like being a little bit split away island as far as previous speakers have been speaking. It's the energy networks. We are not enough connected, so we cannot enjoy it. We cannot get prices down. We cannot solve our Gini index issues. This is about communications. And communications, it's not only business, it's not only the daily life, it's also security. Because comparably with 5 years ago, the Baltic Sea is not anymore so peaceful and secure sea. We see too many ships, too many submarines, too many flights, unseen flights very frequently going over this sea. So we need this communication and cooperation to solve the issues. And food. Food, on the one hand, you know, we are all getting more and more fat. That's very obvious frequently. I'm trying to struggle against this, but this is not easy. But at the same time, we can see a lot of regions around which are still struggling with having enough nutrition. And I think if you look to such countries as Latvia or Estonia or Lithuania, we have enough land so we can produce enough ecological and good food. And this is also one of the strategies where we can globally benefit not only for ourselves, but also for countries around. And of course, strategically, if we are looking to the Baltic Sea strategy until 2020, it will be a difficult time because the European Union is in a difficult time. We can see the discrepancies in politics, where we want to go, where we don't want to go. If we are looking to the European Parliament, sorry, but I have to mention also this number, about 25% of European parliamentarians are against the European Union. I think this is a fact that speaks itself. We are talking about certain countries like Great Britain holding a referendum. Do they want to stay or do they want to go? I hope they will stay. But for us, it is very important that we not only integrate closer our region, but we are also a strong lobby group within EU and within other international organizations, either United Nations or it's NATO or somewhere else. And here it's important transatlantic strategic partnership. Our Latvian Prime Minister Laimdotas Straujuma already mentioned that trade agreements are vital for us. If you are looking to Riga and many other cities, you can see that these are all Hanseatic trade cities. We know how to trade, we know how to live in a peace well. If we can preserve the peace, we will be prosperous earlier or later. So we must not be also blinded by sometimes, you know, those arguments coming from different corners and telling, look, you know, if we conclude either TTIP with the United States or CETA with Canada or trade agreement with Japan, it will something take away from us. Don't afraid to eat potatoes, which were brought from the United States. They are not dangerous, so we are now potato eater countries. Trade is good, and we have enough instruments to make that these agreements are making our lives better in our countries. We can prosper in our region if we can trade. We can prosper in our region if we can keep our borders open for friendly cooperation. And this is the major challenge probably for our strategy until 2020, because it is not only struggle within the Baltic Sea region, it is struggle within the European Union, where we have to ensure that this union is getting stronger and better. But at the end, as always in our lives, it is struggle with ourselves to accept who we are and what we have to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Artis. Now, I'd like to move over to some questions to the panel from the side of the moderators. And I think I'd like to begin with Mr. Dombrovskis, the Vice President of the Commission, using the opportunity of him being here in Riga, to ask a simple question. How do you see the role of the European Commission in the future of the Baltic Sea strategy? Do you see it more hands-on, more hands-off, or something else?
As I already mentioned in my introductory remarks, actually we believe that we have a good balance in, so to say, working on Baltic Sea strategy, to balance between member states and European Commission. And I also outlined the readiness of European Commission to be continuously engaged in developing Baltic Sea strategy and also creating connections with other initiatives in the region. I already gave this one example where one of the Baltic Sea strategy's priorities, energy, is now also developing a link with Baltic Energy Market Interconnection Plan, or BEMIP plan, just to give one example. So clearly there are more EU initiatives, more activities which are related to the Baltic Sea region. And what we can look is how to create synergies between those initiatives and Baltic Sea strategy.
Okay, and looking to the rest of the panel, the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea states is famously built on the 3 no's, which I don't think we've mentioned now. The no new funding, no new laws, no new institutions. To fulfill maybe the ambition that Artis Pabriks was talking about, the need for more cooperation, more integration, is it time to abandon the three no's and try to hit up the Commission for more cash and new laws? Artis, perhaps you first, and then I'll pose the same question to you.
Well, I like to dream, but I consider myself to be a real politician. So from that perspective, those no's are, of course, we know why they are there, because there have been a lot of hindrances. We would not get through with this strategy if we would ask for more. But I think that even in these difficult times, we can get forward also with those resources what we do have if we smartly allocate them, if we smartly collaborate within the network of Baltic countries, and if we stand united also in those institutions like Brussels. Because what we did after we joined European Union in 2004, we remember that, I don't know, do I have to brag or not, but I think it was me who established first time the traditional meetings of foreign ministers between EU countries and Baltic countries. And the same happened also in NATO and etc. So we can do much more once we are in these institutions together. And I think time will come when we will find also the funding for this. About new institutions, you know what, I don't like also new institutions, because new institutions that simply take away energy, and this is much more bureaucracy. Let's reconstruct the old ones and maybe take away some of the old ones if they're not using the purpose.
Okay. Mr. Markula?
Yes, I agree. We can definitely keep those 3 no's still existing, and instead, so we are creating more flexible collaboration, but we need to look much more synergy between the different project activities, much more openness, and this means as well so kind of bottom-up movement, so that we get the good ideas moving faster to the political decision makers in local and regional level, so that in the cities and regions we need to learn from the others, but as well if with the cities, if the big urban cities collaborate more, so one can do experiment and pilot this and the other one does it a bit differently, so through that we get more outcomes. So sometimes something fails, but that's a good result if we learn from that. So this fits to the future. In the future is different. So we need to be more flexible. Need to be more open for this kind of new collaboration. Building the platforms. We kind of tested that kind of development a week ago in the 400 people in the Open Innovation 2.0 conference in Espoo, and prior to that organized a 3-day innovation camp. So it was partly getting people contacting from other parts of the world, and not just the traditional face-to-face, but it's really virtual platforms integrated to our traditional ways of working.
Thank you. And Dr. Mościcka-Dendys.
Thank you very much. I can only echo what the gentleman has just said. I think 3 no's are there to stay. And the idea behind the macro-regional approach was actually meant to be more innovative and search for new formulas for cooperation. I had the pleasure to work with the strategy when we discussed the first review of the macro-regional approach back in 2011, and I remember at that time financing was at core of the discussions, but it was not because of a lack of financial means. It was more, or much more, because of let's say the innovative approach we needed in order to tap the resources available. So I think this still is at core of the debate and discussions, how to get access to the funding, but at the same time, since money rather is there, how to exchange information in a more efficient manner, how to let those who want to be part of the regional cooperation be it, or make it possible for them to join with new projects, and how to, let's say, assess the cooperation in a way which would somehow promote the most efficient and most effective projects, and let them grow in a way which would be a good promotion or a good brand for the macro-regional approach as such.
Okay, thank you. Now, at the registration stage of signing up for the conference, there was a possibility for the participants to pose questions, which we should give to the panelists. And one of the issues which came up regarded the role of education in the strategy. So essentially the idea is that within the strategy, there's a lot of talk about smart growth, about innovation, innovation hubs that we talked about, yet higher education itself isn't given a very high position here. Now, when we look at innovation in the USA, for example, which is probably the foremost example, we see that the most innovative places in the USA, Silicon Valley, the area to the south of Washington, D.C., and so on, areas of Texas around Austin, these are places that have first-rate universities, typically top 50 global universities, and that then they have this very tight interaction with innovators, with businessmen, with these innovation hubs, and so on. So the question is, in your opinion, is the development of these innovation hubs and the development of sort of smart growth in a region even possible unless we focus more on the universities? Because after all, although we have a number of old universities in a region, on this side of the water, Vilnius and Tartu, on the other side, Uppsala, and so on, but none of these universities are regarded as top-tier global universities. Shouldn't we perhaps focus on this? And of course, I do have a certain self-interest as a professor in this. So would somebody like to take this question? Mr. Markula.
Easy to start, because definitely the universities are the drivers of this kind of positive improvement. But they cannot be that isolated which they are in many cases in Europe. So they need to be more connected with the local businesses, local cities, and especially the people. So universities are kind of drivers of this new mentality, new mindset towards openness and innovation. But then it means as well that universities need to be ready to change themselves. So they need to be putting much more attention to learning instead of just education. So we should even think about changing some of these words, really. Think about the learning. It can and it really happens in a very different way than kind of traditional lecturing. And I'm not saying that we still do need the lecturing as well, but not to that extent that we are having. And learning is very often it's associated with the innovation, and that is associated with the scientific and other research. So we need this better synergy between these research, education, and innovation kind of knowledge triangle. So, but it means really more opening the university for outside collaboration.
Sure.
And it needs as well funding, definitely, but the basic funding for education, especially universities, that needs to come from the government's taxpayers' money. So it is a high priority on a long term, because whatever statistics you look, so it's the intellectual capital is the driver for growth and driver for better economic results as well, driver for well-being and so on, development on that.
Mm-hmm. Would anybody else? Artis?
Just a few words. Well, knowledge is universal. And I think the trick is here how to deliver this universal knowledge locally. And certain things can be assisted by cooperation across the borders and across the regions, but there must be done also always a homework. And it's not always easy to do this because it requires really a lot of social policy, a lot of general policy to reform the institutional networks. And we know that universities are, from one hand, very autonomous and free since Middle Ages, but they are also conservative. So I think Daunis also knows that quite well. So I think that we have a good example as international cooperation between the Stockholm School of Economics, Stockholm School of Law. I personally would really encourage more such type of cooperation, because that would, on the one hand, give a higher quality. give a better competition and also advance reforms in certain areas where people do not want to reform because they simply feel good.
I think one more point which is also important to add is that innovation and excellence is something you cannot prescribe. I mean, you can't tell to your university, be excellent. It won't happen from one day to another. What we definitely need is, let's say, make our universities less traditional, less conservative, also in the way how they pick up students, how they cooperate with students, and how they cooperate with businesses. I think the idea of clusters and startups is another one which has to be followed more closely in Europe. What we see in the Baltic Sea region is a great human potential. We definitely are very strong with human resources. Unfortunately, we not managed to keep them here. I mean, if you look at the Silicon Valley, the example you've mentioned, many of the engineers working there, or IT specialists, come from this very region. So I think we should not only think about how to educate them and how to support their ideas, but also how to let them stay here in the Baltic Sea region in order to make their ideas be implemented here. And I won't mention any specific examples, you know what I mean. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, hopefully that's one of the things that we'll be discussing in the parallel sessions about how to get these synergies from the Baltic universities, how to make them globally competitive. But now I'll hand over to my co-moderator, Anna-Maija.
Yeah, it's time to open the discussion to the audience. Maybe we can change slightly the lights, because now I don't see really the audience. Oh, that's you. And maybe also here, just very shortly. If you can change somehow here. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. I would like to remind you that this is my first forum in this European Union strategy for Baltic Sea region, but I read all the materials that you had already about the forums and also about the feedbacks. And the thing is, the most criticized topic is that we don't have enough exchange. And of course, we need these speeches first. This is the basis for the discussion. But you can promote also this exchange. And that's why I ask you to ask very short and simple. So make questions, don't make statements, and pretty short if it's possible. And I take 3 or 4 if there are questions and put them then forward to our speakers. Do you have any questions? This is not what I expected. Yes, there is one. Is there another? When not, then just take that on. Yes, please. There is a microphone coming.
Thank you.
Please say where you are from and what do you do?
My name is Mikko Vienonen. I come from Finland. I represent the Northern Dimension Partnership in Public Health and Social Well-being, representing practically all the countries in the Baltic Sea region. Not quite, but almost. My question is very short. I was listening very carefully and found it very interesting. But honestly speaking, I did not hear, I may be wrong, one single note of what does this development mean for the well-being of social well-being for people, and also nobody made a reference to public health. It was on economy, roads, the water, the air, all important. But how about us, the people? What does it mean? Does it make our life better? Does it make us more happy? Thank you. Would be interested in here.
Thank you so much. Maybe I pass this question to Markku Markkula, because you are, of course, representative of the committees, and health is very much in the agenda, in the Finnish agenda as well. So
thank you. Very important aspect, but I would say that when we are collaborating, when you are getting a lot of, let's say, positive feedback from your colleagues, your peers from different countries, if you start feeling that your own role is important in the network, so that brings definitely happiness, or at least some kind of joy of creating something new and not kind of being alone. And so for me, this putting more attention to these learning processes. It's really much about the joy of learning and through that better well-being. And in the learning mood, I would say, so people are always looking for the others, helping the others. So finding that can be reaching your life. So from that respect, so at least this kind of what I hear, what we are calling for this innovation hub collaboration, more Baltic Sea collaboration. So that brings a lot new elements to this. It brings new cultures, new backgrounds for this, and then we are looking how to scale that up to the rest of Europe. So it's again a positive thing that we are seeing that we really can have a role to play in a European or even a global perspective, and I think that is important. Health is it's very much as well a mental issue, and if you are kind of looking very openly, so you start, definitely you need to be open for different approaches, different exercises, put your own body and mind in these challenges, so that as well helps. Definitely we need then new kind of services, new developments, public-private collaboration on that, but that's maybe another issue then.
Thank you so much. Would you like to add something to that? No. Do you have more questions to the... Oh, yes, there on the back. Yes, that gentleman in the last row.
Yeah, I am Rolf Solvang from Norway and representing NGOs, the Welfare Alliance and so. And we have asked this question here before, where is the social dimension? We was a little bit optimistic when we saw this equality, but it means maybe because in Norway we have lost some of the glue that keep the society together the last years, because the pensions of the old people and the out-of-work people is getting less and less, and the difference between people makes this project of growth some kind of gambling, I think. And I'm a little disappointed that only one in the person talk about, in the panel, talk about this social dimension, which is surely a problem for these people who make the strategy, that prosperity for all is missing.
Thank you very much for this very important question. Artis, Pabriks, please.
Yes, I apologize if I did not mention it clearly, but obviously by social dimension I was trying also to touch upon when I was speaking about that development what we got on this side of the Baltic Sea in the last 20 years, and particularly in the last 10 years since we have been in part of the European Union, because obviously the disparity, the Gini index, this is a very, very important aspect for all our societies on this side. So if we are looking to the Nordic countries, we can see that Nordic countries are the ones which have very high level of equality, redistribution. Here on our side, we are in a different position. We are first of all relatively more poor compared to the average of European Union, but we are running faster. We are becoming richer. But at the same time, we also must be enough smart and understand that it's extremely difficult to start to redistribute something which you do not have yet. And from that perspective, I think it's important that we are focusing at this moment on the issues which can bring more wealth to our public, which can bring more sustainability to our economies, and then we can help internally, of course, to those people who do not feel maybe so good or who are not so advantaged in their social and economic lives. But to start with distribution aspects from our perspective without having growth, I think it would be a little bit unsustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to add something? Yes, Marco, please.
Just in brief, so the different welfare alliances, NGOs, etc., so they are extremely important. and especially when we are now thinking more on the long term, the sustainability issues, because sustainability, it's not just ecological sustainability, it's very much social sustainability, and through those both, it's then economic sustainability as well, so that what way to organize, because let's say, very much in many of our Baltic Sea member states, so we have a good tradition in a local collaborative kind of mindset, so the communities of practice who take care of the rest and inform and involve, and now when we move more to the e-world as well, so the virtual reality, so they help a lot in contacting and being really involved with that. So again, so it's about the human beings, and they need to take a much stronger role, not just to have our governments to provide some services.
Okay. One short comment on Pabriks. Yes, please.
One more note. Well, I'm far from being a social expert, but at the same time, I would like to say that looking also on the developments of our societies on both sides of the sea, if we look to Latvia, we know that in the 19th century, we have been one of the very best examples of cooperation, of economic cooperation, social solidarity, and etc. And now we somewhere a little bit lost this. So I think that the understanding of liberal democracy in our societies at this moment is based more about the freedom, but solidarity and let's say understanding of society cannot be based on egoism. And this is a question of education. And the education can be done between successful businesses and between local communities, between local NGOs, between anything what is happening. So if you are a businessman, you must be aware of those problems which exist, because we can't solve all problems as a state institution. So, and here, of course, this is a longer-term job, but this is also a philosophical approach, a way how we do think. And maybe here is a cooperation and some good examples from Nordic countries, maybe not all, but some could help us as well.
Thank you so much. We have two more questions. The first one is the lady on the left side, and then the second one is the lady in the middle. So I would like to take the two questions together. Yes, please.
My name is Britt-Marie Torstensson, and I'm representing Winnet Sweden and the Winnet BSR Corporation. And my question is, how will you secure that you have gender equality as a driving force for sustainable growth? And I heard some of my next question was how you should include civil society organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we take immediately the second question. You have the microphone there. If you kindly just pass the microphone. It's, yes, that's the row. Please raise your hand and then, yes, very good.
Hello, my name is Jaana Simula and from city of Pori in Finland, and I represent the Union of the Baltic Cities Commission, the Cultural Cities Commission. And my question to the panel is, when implementing the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region, how do you see the role of art and culture? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We take first the question concerning gender equality. Yes, please.
Well,
Artis,
we politicians, we like to talk. About gender equality, in 2001 or 2002, I was making myself a research, and I think the numbers did not change very much. In such country as Latvia, I don't know, is it fortunate or not fortunate, but 70% of the state officials are female. So this is one of the reasons why maybe our policies also differ from approaches in Northern Europe, in the rest of Northern Europe, I would say, as far as equal numbers, because equal numbers doesn't tell too much. I think if we speak about the gender equality in the Baltic countries, in my respective country, I think it's rather about education, but this is not about recreating numbers or trying to just put, you know, for instance, equal number of people in boards of enterprises, etc. This is where our philosophies are differing from Nordic philosophies. But among many other things, I think we are just on the equal basis. And the second question was actually about
culture and arts.
Culture.
The role
well,
of
I think that if we could have more cultural interaction between such cities like Jurmala or Liepāja or Kuldīga or many other cities in Latvia where we have very high cultural standards, starting from opera, ending with rock music, ending with folk music. If we can bring here Swedish, Finnish, Norwegian, Danish, whatever artists, we will just benefit. We will grow closer. This is what I mentioned in my previous speech also, that we have to use all the channels to get much more integrated.
Thank you so much, and I would like to stress that it was also about the civil society, coming myself from this, and it could be really the engine. First, we have the Dr. Mościcka-Dendys would like to comment on the first question.
Thank you very much. Since I'm the only woman in the panel, I feel somehow forced to address the issue of gender equality, and I'm proud to say that when I started as Deputy Foreign Minister, we had in the Polish MFA a perfect parity, because I think it's not, these days it's not really about gender equality, it's much more about parity and the presence of women in all sectors of life, starting with business, public administration, etc. And whenever I'm being asked about why the participation of women is important, I tend to use the economic example, because I think this is the most important one. Women are the untapped potential, or stand for the untapped potential of our economies. If you look at the numbers and see that it depends on a member state, but in the Baltic Sea region, there are member states where less than 50% of women are active in the labor market. Look how much we lose there. Taking also into account that usually, nowadays, women are also better educated, but they simply do not use their place on the labor market, or they are not offered because of family policies, of social policies of each and every member state in the region and also broader in the European Union. They have troubles to connect, let's say, the business and family life. They sometimes forced to choose, and they usually decide for families. If we offered better solutions, and here I think there is a large potential for cooperation in the Baltic Sea region, also in terms of exchanging best practices and learning from each other, we would really be better in terms of generating growth, and probably we would also be more innovative in the future. And if I may, on the one more point on the gender issue, this was the reason why Poland and Sweden have suggested to include a specific project aimed at gender equality to be included into the Baltic Sea strategy. And I think this is really a good idea to start on a small scale, an exchange of best practices and a good cooperation, which would serve the purpose of really learning from each other. And one more point on art and culture. It's Jean Monnet who once asked about the European integration project, said that if he was allowed to start from scratch, he would have started not by economy but by culture. And I think this is also valid for the cooperation in the Baltic Sea region. There is a lot of potential for good cooperation in this area. The Baltic, if you think about Baltic brands or things which could be promoted in the Baltic Sea region better, creative designs, art, culture, tourism, definitely at this points which would come to your mind. So I think here again the Baltic Sea strategy still has a big role to play, and not only the Baltic Sea strategy, also the other formats. Poland on the 1st of July will take over the chairmanship in the Council of the Baltic Sea States, and we decided to put creativity as one of our driving ideas or logos for the one-year chairmanship, if you wish, and because we think that exactly in the sector of creative designs, of culture and art, there is a lot still to be done, and only cooperating together around the sea we can bring concrete results about. If you look at the tourism industry, this is just obvious. Why not come back to the Hanseatic tradition, the region is famous for? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Dombrovskis.
Yes, thank you. I'll probably concentrate on this question on involvement of civil society. Because also in the introductory remarks I already mentioned the three challenges strategy is facing, and third challenge mentioned was full involvement. That's certainly something we should do, ensure full involvement of all stakeholders, and something which we did during the review process. We had a very throughout discussions. We listened very carefully to the member states and also stakeholders in the member states when preparing the review. And of course, also now moving forward, it's important, but while evolving the strategy or while implementing the strategy, that we work very closely with all stakeholders, including civil society. And I would say it's in general reflects the approach of the new European Commission, new approach to our, for example, macroeconomic governance. We're discussing how to closer involve social partners in the decision making. When we are discussing our new approach to the legislative work in general, where we are carrying out public consultations and impact assessments, so listening to the stakeholders, listening to the civil society before moving forward with legislative acts. So this is certainly something we are very much concentrating on. And then probably a general remark, many questions were addressed actually on areas which frankly said were not so much emphasized by the speakers in a panel, but of course I believe that the speakers were concentrating in the priorities which are set in the strategy, meaning save the sea, connect the region and increase prosperity. And while many other aspects are actually very relevant and can build into the strategy, of course we also must remember that if everything is a priority, then at the end of the day nothing is a priority. So strategy has a set priorities, and I believe we're concentrating our discussions around those priorities which are already set in a strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Markkula.
About the gender equality, so definitely it should be one of the basic values throughout the whole Europe. It's not yet that everywhere, but we can do a lot for that. So it's the same kind of thing that we say that the decentralized democracy, that's one of our cornerstones throughout the whole Europe. So we need to have and put always more pressure on that. Just about the and what is the added value on this kind of even the territorial integration, so that we move on a closer collaboration, European regions collaborate, do more partnerships, and in those we cannot just kind of benchmark what is the situation in another region, but we should move on to kind of bench learning. So we learn all the time from that elements, and that's important. It's same applies in a way to arts and culture. So especially we look for the schools. So we now have and should put much more attention to the role of arts and culture there, because we don't, young children don't need to study and study the knowledge as such that much, but they need to develop their own kind of know-how and understanding of the different phenomena, and on those arts, design, culture, all those creativity issues are more crucial than ever.
Thank you so much.
And as there seem to be no more questions from the audience, I'll ask one concluding question before we sum up the session. So the nature of a Baltic Sea strategy is that it is centered on the Baltic Sea. And there comes a certain political and socio-economic risk with this, because we know that the less developed regions in Denmark, in Sweden, in Finland, in Estonia, in Latvia, they're the regions which are the furthest from the Baltic Sea. So in other words, how can we overcome this risk to make sure that the Baltic Sea strategy doesn't deepen and further and entrench this inequality, but instead serves to facilitate the growth of these regions going into the future. And I don't know who would like to take this up. Vice President Dombrovskis.
Well, I must say you are putting really challenging questions, and it's clear that Baltic Sea strategy will not be able to solve all the problems in all the fields. As the name suggests, it's Baltic Sea strategy, and if we talk about regional inequality, it's of course a very valid problem. I don't see immediately the ways you ask how Baltic Sea strategy will address the regions far away from the Baltic Sea. But in any case, there are other EU policies meant exactly to reduce regional inequality. I mentioned European structural and investment funds, which is one of the biggest positions in EU budget, which provides, I would say, huge amounts of money exactly for this purpose. For example, in Latvia, we'll be getting around 3% of the GDP annually from European structural and investment funds, which is a very substantial amount of money which can be put to the productive use. And it's also true in many other countries and regions, that those funds are not available only for the countries, but also for the regions, if there are strong regional disparities in terms of economic development. There are ways to deal it also through the social policies, through targeted support to the enterprises in areas with a higher unemployment, and so on and so forth. So there are a number of EU policies. So I would see this as a question which should be put in a broader context, and we still should try to concentrate on those priorities which are set exactly in Baltic Sea strategy when we are discussing Baltic Sea strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Just continue, because there were already very many important elements. So what is already available throughout the EU funding, but it's always some kind of multi-financing issue. So people at whatever location they are operating, whatever organization they are working with, so they need to be committed themselves. And that's, as take an example of the Baltic Sea Interreg, so that's open for everyone, but that's not, or should not be only kind of separate projects. So they need to be better integrated to what other activities are going on. So, and for the political decision makers, so my message is so that go ahead, make priorities, focus on a few things that you can build the future of that city or that village, and focus strongly on that, and build your collaboration on that. That's why we in Europe, we have these smart specialization strategies, which are really kind of processes for economic transformation. So focusing on a few of the key elements and collaborate then throughout Europe on those, so that you get the best knowledge in your own use, and you start building your kind of your own innovation community there locally. So let's not call some regions anymore less developed or less innovative. They can be innovation builders. They can look strongly forward.
Dr. Mościcka-Dendys.
If I may just shortly, a very concrete example from Poland. I mean, how did we try to implement the macro-regional approach in Poland? I mean, you all know that Poland is located I started with the sentence that we have two legs. The one is Baltic, the other is Central European. But in order for this not to have a divisive effect on our regional policies, we've simply encouraged our regions to take part in both projects, in the Visegrad cooperation on the one hand side, and in the Baltic cooperation on the other. And you would be surprised that that actually the most interesting suggestions for cooperation or projects in the Baltic Sea region sometimes came from regions which are not necessarily at the coast of the Baltic Sea, but rather from central Polish region, like just to name one, like the city of Łódź or the city of Krakow, which are by far not Baltic, but if opened with the possibility to cooperate, they keenly accept and try to be innovative. And I think this is also the very idea behind the macro-regional approaches, that they allow for innovative thinking. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you to our panel. To quickly sum up, I think this has been an excellent forward-looking and optimistic panel. Mr. Dombrovskis stressed that the opportunities for funding are there, that we should collaborate more, something that Dr. Pabriks also stressed, that we can best seize these opportunities by deeper regional cooperation at the individual level, at the firm, sorry? An integration even, which is of course a much closer step. Thank you, Artis. And that these opportunities can best be seized through these deeper processes of integration, not just cooperation. And also, it was stressed that this is also an opportunity for us to communicate with the publics, to bring the European Union closer to the people. And then Mr. Markola also offered a concrete vision of innovation hubs, specifically bringing in the famous Nordic and increasingly also famous Baltic design and designers to add value to these innovative products and services that can be offered by the region. So before we now break for our half-hour break, first of all, we should applaud our panel. And then just before we make a run for our coffee, if we could just stay seated for 30 seconds so that Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden can rush off to her next function. So thank you very much. She didn't know. Okay.
Just maybe. And thank you for enjoying.
Thank you very much. Okay. Leos Valdis, yours. Thank you.